Hello, everyone. My name is Michal Drozdowski, and I'm a creative director at 11-Bit Studios.
And I'm Marszal, and I'm art director on 11-Bit.
Yes, and we are together kind of responsible for the game development at 11-Bit Studios. So we want to talk today about the lesson from Frostpunk and This War of Mine and ask ourselves a general question of why to make games. And who is 11-Bit Studios? We are a company from Poland that started about 10 years ago. We started 4-person with Grzegorz Michalski, Bartek Brzostek, Przemek, and me as partners. Currently, we are about 100 people. Our two recent projects are Frostpunk and This War of Mine, and those are the games that we will talk about. So we like to think that what we are doing is called meaningful games. And with such a word, it's always a question, what do we mean by that? Well, what are meaningful games? And I think there are a lot of ways to see what can be meaningful from different approach. And we also in the studio have some different ideas about what we call meaningful games, but let us first sum up. And one thing that is important for us is that we are very emotional about games and about playing games. And those emotions that, especially those emotions that breed thoughts, is something that we want to have in our game, which means that we would like to have emotions that are not shallow, but that came up from mostly decision and subject that we touch. And we also think that it would be great if games could communicate some values, some greater values in the process of making them and through the message they send to the community. We really look for fresh experiences and not only like fresh ideas, but also things that could probably expand the game language about, like, for example, making empathy games, like This War of Mine, which is kind of not a mechanic, but something that is really important in the game. And we try to make those games with a kind of close-to-life message, something which is insightful and something which is well-precised. We could kind of put it in one sentence. And if we look at the games that we made, for This War of Mine, we had like two messages. It was at war, not everyone is a soldier, and that war always happens at somebody's doorsteps, which actually mean that we want to make a game about civilians. With Frostpunk, that was society survival, and the last city must survive, which also kind of was meaning that we will make a game about society and the cost it pays for survival.
Okay, we will switch now for a few minutes. So, why we made those games that Michal told you about? We will start with This War of Mine, because, to be honest, this presentation forced on us to question ourselves why we made these games. So why This War of Mine? You know, when I recall from the beginning of my early career, let's say it's career, or early days in game development, it's probably all for you the same. I just love to make games, and we all love totally to make games. And we love it for the creativity, and also to express ourselves and to stand out. And this love for games, and also the innovation behind the games, was also behind the vision why we created 11-Bit Studios. Because we wanted to express and we wanted to innovate. At the time that we started working on This War of Mine, we are after a few games. We already finished, I think, Anomaly 2 and some other mobile games. And we, after Anomaly and Anomaly 2, we understood that we could deliver something that is well-packed, well thought out innovation. We could do an innovative game. And we started working on some other project. It was called Shelter. And After, I think, 8 months of the development, we are at the stage that, okay, this is good gameplay, this is a good game, but there is something lacking, you know? And we just couldn't agree to this approach that we will create mechanic gameplay-based game only. And we, I think, unconsciously set the bar higher for us, because we were looking for you know, for some other hate for us, and we just scrapped the project. And we understood that we need emotions in our games. We need to define an emotion in our games. We find an emotions and find something that we would like to and would love to talk about in those games. And you know, we scrapped the shelter, and to be honest, it was visually. It had almost the same camera. It was also a cross section, but it was completely different game. And we went back to the drawing boards, and we asked all people in the team, "Hey guys, let's think of this game. What we'd like to talk about." And I think this is one of the moments in our development that we had luck. To be honest, we had luck that we had such a wonderful team, and that we are open-minded. And at this time, Greg, our CEO, once came to the company, and he said, "Guys, you know, I was reading this article about civilians in Sarajevo and Bosnia and Herzegovina, and it was a really strong emotional piece." And he told us about it, and he said, "Hey, what do you think about it?" And when he told it, we immediately understood the huge importance of what we could do and what we could achieve with this game. We understood that, wow, before us, there was a project that could change our lives, and it was, you know, instant revelation. So we thought, okay, let's do this. It's a huge and risky project. To be honest, until the end of production, until the day of the launch, we didn't know how the people will react to this game. It could be just, you know, cool artistical piece, and without any significance to the game development as a whole. But we went for it. We knew the risk, but also we knew this importance. And we had this message that Michal already told you that was easy to understand. And overall, I think it had value. It was huge value for us. It was personal value, artistical value, and emotional value. And we saw this value for our next project. So I think that was why we started working on this for mine. So how we made it? We'll just present you some ideas how we made it. But I will start with some two basic concepts that we follow, and the concept that we agree while we are doing games. First of all, when you are doing something innovative, when you are doing some new game, in our case, meaningful game, it always, you know, for us, it always touches, you know, completely new areas of game development. So if you follow innovation, you must agree that it will be a constant R&D process. From the start till the end, you will constantly, you know, as I love to say, sail an unexplored oceans. And you must agree to this. And second concept that we also follow is you know, there are studios that make games. Okay, let's make the most beautiful game that we have, or let's decide that gameplay is the most important part of our game, or the art, or something different, or the music. For our studio, it's different, because we think for us the mood, the experience is the key. Mood as this bond between gameplay and art. And also music, I haven't written it down here, but everything must create a mood and experience. And this is what we pursue when we create our first prototype. We first, from the early days of the development, we first to find the mood in our games. And what's funny is that when we have, let's say we are in the middle of the production, we start to do our focus tests on the players. So our QA is inviting people to the studio, and we have those questions after the tests. We have some, let's say, how would you like to value the graphics? How would you like to value the mechanics? And how would you like to value mood? And tons of different questions. For our games, when I recall, it was for This War of Mine and Frostpunk, always the highest ranked question was the mood. So I think we do it in the right direction.
Okay, so let's go and see a few things about the design that we did in This War of Mine. And it's like Przemek said, when you start up on a subject like the war, you usually have some kind of concept in your mind. You've seen some movie, you read some book. And it's good to kind of empty your head and to make, like the saying that you cannot fill a glass that is not empty, you have to first empty the glass. And we did research, and I think this is a very important part of the project. The other thing that we'll talk later will be the core kind of system of players' part and decision, and I will show you also some kind of design consequences of some design choices that we made. So it's pretty much obvious that you will better understand the reality of the game if you do some research, but you will actually grab this mood that Przemek is talking about, and you will grab really a lot of detail and nuances that you haven't been aware before. And I think that's very important, especially when I have new people coming to the project. Usually they have some different approach to the game, and they first have to kind of redo the research that we did, read some book, view some movie, to kind of better understand what was the reality at this time. And the other thing that you get is you get facts about the world. And what's interesting is this, that these facts actually define a lot of situations that you will have in the game. So if, for example, we have snipers that operate during the daytime and constant shelling that is also operating during the daytime, we know that civilians will be active at night and during the night, and it actually goes to the design of having people staying during the day at home and getting active at night out of their home. And another, if you have no tap water, you have no electricity, then you have to get water and kind of, I don't know, create some, cook some food without electricity. So it's go immediately to some kind of, okay, so I need some parts to scavenge to kind of get like a water collector, or maybe create a stove for burning wood and burning books. So these facts are not only facts that kind of go into narrative, but they go pretty much into the design. And another thing that we kind of observed when we were doing research is that basically this war is not one constant narrative event that has its beginning and its end, but it's a situation that is made up of stories who affect certain people, like a story of a mother who lost the child, or a story of two grandparents that they don't know what to do during the wartime. So the research kind of had impact on how we have structured the narrative in the game. So making it like a puzzle built up many stories put together in one war, in one picture of the war. And if we go down and if we look at the core of the gameplay, we get to a situation where we're talking about the player path and the decision that it's making. And one thing we learned about the war is that it kind of affects very much ourselves and changes us. And the question is really how much of what we believe we are we going to keep and protect during this hard time? So for us, it was really important that the player is free to choose his own path, and that this path will kind of lead him from kind of being a villain or being a hero, doing something great or maybe something very bad. So this was achieved, of course, through decision making, but another important thing in this decision making, in this war of mine, was that he must face the consequences. So he's able to do whatever he wants, but he must know what was the consequences of his act. And either he can see it, or he can be informed, or he can be kind of informed by the people from the shelter. Because we wanted not to judge the player by the decision, but we wanted to create a moral world that will kind of feedback him about what he is thinking about his decision making. And this was very important to get this loop, okay, choose your own path, make your own decision, but kind of face the consequences and see how the world reacts to your actions. And most of this feedback was actually made through kind of questions like, should we have been doing this? Or grandpa, why do other people kill each other? And what we wanted to achieve, we wanted to achieve some kind of interaction with the player when we will ask him questions that he will have to answer himself in his head and kind of think of what he's doing, kind of think of where does those actions lead him. And for the last, I would like to show you how some initial guidelines affected some design rules, because I think it's also interesting that usually when we try to define a subject, we are writing a sequence of words or short sentences, and then those things translate into game design. And for example, when we defined that this will be a game about civilians, we were thinking, okay, it will be a game about people like us, normal people. And what that mean in terms of game design? We actually had no level ups. We played the game, and it was really luring to kind of, improve your skill in some place, but we throw it away because this is not what's happening in real life. And we also were very lured about having some kind of RPG-like inventory, so we had like initially a few slots for the item that you can take from the scavenge to your shelter, and then you could have a helmet, or you could have a Kevlar vest, or you could have some picklocks. And it was very tempting to make separate slot for these items, but we said no, we don't have separate slot like that. And if you're wearing a Kevlar vest, it's probably heavy enough, and you can't bring that much stuff from the scavenge. Also, the personality of the people, they have skills. Some skills are very useful, like someone is quick or someone is quite strong, but there are also useless skills, like I'm good at maths. I mean, what does it give me if I'm good at design and more happens? Nothing. We have, of course, personal belief and psychological traits of the character, so not everybody is an angel. There are people who are egoistic, there are people who are altruistic, and they all kind of give you feedback depending on the individual nature. We have people able to suffer trauma like the post-traumatic war syndrome in the game. And for example, another kind of design decision that was to be made based on the fact that there are people like us is that it's very easy to be killed in the game, and it's very easy to kill, and the combat is rather kind of chaotic. Sometimes you don't know when the bullet hits you. And this is also kind of the reality what we were showing. And the same goes for level design. If you're at war and you enter somebody's house, you're basically an intruder. You're not somebody who came to do a quest, so there are no quests in the game. You won't have people standing at the door and saying, oh, okay, great that you came. There are soldiers in the back, please, get rid of them. And there is also no treasure sometimes. There is a scene when we have a woman who is bullied by the soldier, and we can help them, but if we help them, she runs away. She don't give us a diamond for doing that. So we also opted not to design workarounds in the game. So there is, you cannot kind of satisfy both sides or do things without suffering some kind of cost. But we also choose to, for example, not to have gore and violence as a way to build emotion, because we thought that it's not the proper way to actually do that. It's more important to kind of have the feeling of grief or the feeling of loss, of being helpless in a situation, instead of having, pictures of, scenes of war that we sometimes see in the movie with really strong emotional impact, but a bit shallow in the term of game design. And finally, death is a value mechanic in this game. It's both the death of the people who are in your shelter as finishing the game by failing. Because, I mean, a lot of these things seem kind of contradictory to some design rules or things that we are used to making games. And the question is, why all of that? Why we did that? And the answer, in my opinion, is we did that because we wanted to allow the player to have an experience of war as a civilian, instead of giving them the opportunity to just win the game. Reading a good book with a moment of failure is also a great experience, and we try to kind of mimic that in this work of mine.
So this experience, we also try to create it via art of the game. So again, a mood that I told you. So this bound. So everything art had to do was to amplify. Was to amplify everything. We also wanted to have a distinctive character of the game, have this message around the game, and do it. So find the ways to do it for the small team that we were back then. So first of all, when we wanted to create a style for the game, we wanted, that's what I told you just a second ago. We wanted to amplify. We wanted to emphasize this situation the game was about the civilians. So we selected the colors, selected the palette of the game, and really we amplified the hopelessness. We amplified the serious situation you are then back there. Also, we wanted to create this let's say this. I sometimes call it drone reality. The situation when this look that is not realistical and not drawn. It is like we call it like so we like to tell, we like to call it a novel look, just like reading a book. We were trying to pursue this approach of something redrawn and drawn like a stories in this game. Also, we selected this view for the game to show the whole community. We wanted the player to not focus on the specific one character in the game. We wanted the player to see the whole community, this small community, and think of them as a whole and not to focus on one single person. So we had also inspiration for it, like what you see here is from Take On Me, or you can saw it in like Dire Straits music videos. As you can see, it's also real and not real. We were trying to find this middle point with our art style. We also looked at how we can have this harsh look of the game, this contrasty harsh look of the game. One of the inspirations was what was Banksy doing, what he is right now doing, with all the colors, so strong black and white, and some small touch of color, some kind of mood-creating approach that is, as I said, harsh. Also, we had a huge amount of research, and we also use a lot of graffiti to communicate with the player, because words are easy understandable. So that the style was one thing, but the true approach was I think even most important for us. Maybe it is not understandable by player, but it was very important for us as a developer. Only this way we could really feel that yes, we did it the right way. So, starting with the beginning, you know, first of all, we thought of, okay, so we have the game about the civilians, and as Michal said, war always happens at somebody's doorstep, so it can happen right now. We could happen just right, we are here. So what we did, we scanned ourselves, our friends, the people we knew, and we just scanned it, dirty, low poly scan with Kinect. And just as we were standing, we put ourselves into the game. Of course, we added some backpacks to make it all feel real with the scavenging, but we scanned ourselves just like we were standing there. So it was true for us. Okay, this is a game about civilians. It can be about us. We also photographed ourselves the way that we were standing. One day we were shooting, when we are taking photos for the game, we just asked people in the studio and some other people, hey, could you just stand behind this wall and open your eyes and close your eyes? And that was it. We did it instantly, without any makeup. It was just as we were standing. So there were no preparations, no, as I said, makeup, no, direction. We just, hey, stand, close your eyes, open your eyes, and that's it. It was just like in natural, real world, just like now. And as you can see, we've chosen different people. The people we knew, our security guard at the office, our accountant is also in the game, the designer, because at war there are random people and random stories, random deaths, and random tragedies. And at the end, I think we delivered the message. The civilians at war, and to be honest, I'm really happy that we did this game, and I'm also happy to this stage that I don't think I would change anything in this war of mine. I'm not saying it's perfect, but this simplicity and this message is, I think, should be untouched right now. Okay, so let's move to Frostpunk. So, why did we make Frostpunk? At the moment that we were working on this war of mine, we still haven't finished this war of mine, and our second team already started working on our next game. And the history repeated itself because we were doing something called industrial. Michal will tell you more about it. But at the end, the story short, this game sucked. But it sucked because we were tired. After this war of mine, we were very mentally tired. We didn't want to do this hard, mentally tired game about so strong emotions, about these stories, about the strategy. We didn't want to do a next game about it. So we thought, hey, maybe we will do some gamers game with a cool idea, cool gameplay. But at the end, it just sucked. And I think it was a very important moment for 11-bit studios, because this was the moment that we realized, hey, from now on, we will do meaningful games. This was the moment that changed the company, changed 11-bit studios. We understood that, hey, we can't do another game without having this message inside, because it just isn't our DNA, and we should, for any other new project, we should thirst for this message and thirst for this meaningfulness, so have this goal of telling something to the players and having this value. I was already talking to you. So we found the game and we found the message. It was about society survival, and it was setting mood so perfectly. You will see it soon. Of course, this game was also really well tailored for the studio, as the studio was back then, because we weren't also that huge. I think that the dev team was about 20 to 30 people back then, and we knew that we should pick a project that will learn us a lot, that will scale us, but also we will be able to deliver it. The games also had some cool things about being very understandable. And the last thing is, I think it's also why we decided to make this game even bigger, is that we really learned a lot on this War of Mine, and our marketing was really getting so strong that we believed we will deliver the message, and even putting much more money into the production and making this game even better. We knew that, hey, we have the message, we have the great team, the whole team was really great, and we have the great marketing, so we will communicate everything to the player.
Okay, so how Frostpunk? And again, after the kind of failure with Industrial, we went back to the drawing board and we focused on the mood, on what this game will be about. And as Przemek said, it's a bond between gameplay and art for us. You can have a screenshot of Frostpunk. It's for those of you who don't know, this is a kind of a sim game in a survival environment of very frost and cold winter. Is practically the last city on Earth. But the game is actually not only about surviving economically, but mostly about how you will shape the society and how the society will survive. So, kind of getting a bit back, to redefine the game, we had to scrap the first proto, and this was a very good decision. But what we were looking for, and what actually we find, we were looking for strong emotion. We couldn't find that in our previous prototype. A very big sense of involvement in gameplay and a sense of purpose, something that will make us want to play this game more and more. And we were looking for a meaningful subject to talk. And we kind of had a brainstorm in the company, a lot of concept, but what we kind of defined is we have an extreme winter, we have the last city, we have tough people, and we have survival and adaptation. And this is basically what answers the strong emotion and sense of involvement. And on the other hand, we have the society, we have its adaptation again, we have the decision that we will make with consequences, the way we will shape it. But the very end question is, okay, so how much we will sacrifice to survive with this society? And again, we have strong emotion and a meaningful subject. So that was basically the kind of redesign of the game that we made at the first step. Okay, there were just some more few steps to find out. The problem is we were a small studio and we couldn't go for many prototypes at the same time. So we had to kind of map all the system in the game, like the society, economy, but also the decision-making process, the temperature level, etc. And start building one by one. And we go for some very first prototype of Frostpunk, which was played on this kind of cards. With D1 is, for example, house 1. So shaping the society is basically all Frostpunk is about. And what does it mean, shaping? Shaping means kind of changing, giving it some different characteristic that it has initially. And it's back to this key question of how much are we willing to survive, or maybe if surviving at all costs is really worth it. And there are a few things I will talk. It's just a bit of the whole design and the whole mechanics that's in the game with regards to society. But I think these are the most important concepts. And let's look at the trees of adaptation, the tree of hope, and the tree of fate, and the tree of order. And what you can see over here is a tree of order. It's basically some kind like a skill tree or decision tree that you make. You kind of sign off orders, and that will become laws in your city. And it's built around a kind of progression that the most basic law that you undertake, they are pretty much in both systems very positive stuff. If you go with order, you start giving protection, you start making some kind of morning gathering to inform the people and get better organized. If you start with faith, you have chapels, you have all kind of prayers. And these are good. This is the beginning of making the system, and these are all positive. And then when you go a bit up, you're kind of in the middle of the tree. You have things that doesn't look so bad. Sometimes the name may be scary, like, I don't know, Fate Guards. But on the other hand, we have guards at the shopping mall. They are not scary. And you have things like prisons, which are pretty much okay. We all have prisons right now. And this is kind of a middle ground when the decision is not yet very bad in terms of influencing the society, but it's kind of up to you how you will use it later in the game. And when we go even further, we start getting things like propaganda certain, like a pledge of loyalty, or a forceful persuasion. So this tree is kind of going the dark side, from the light part to the dark part. And it's up to you. I mean, this is a bit counterintuitive, because in games usually when you have a skill tree, at the very end you receive a big prize. It's not like that in Frostpunk. At the end of the tree, you receive a very strong tool to influence the society, but it's actually something really, really nasty. And we're coming to a statement that actually in Frostpunk, not signing a law that pushed the system further is quite a valid decision to be made. It's quite valid to stop at the level that you feel comfortable with and try not to go further. So it's not matters only what law you sign, but it also matters how you use them, if you use them or if you abuse them. And this is kind of a mechanic that we introduced that, for example, if you have guards, you can start dispersing the crowd each time the people protest. But doing that means that your guards will feel kind of allowed to perform the peaceful operation on their own behalf. So we kind of, during the game, measure how you are using the abilities. And the shaping of the society actually happened at a moment when the law you have introduced, the concept that you have introduced in your society, starts to kind of live their own life. And it all begins by kind of creating some kind of split in the society. So, for example, on the screen, you have a woman who was assaulted. It's after the signing of a law pledge of loyalty. And it's a woman that has been assaulted by her neighbor who accused her of informing on him. But she hasn't signed the pledge of loyalty. So she is not guilty. But the trick is that the society is already split into two different sides. Those who like the kind of law and those who don't like. And this goes farther and farther until the society start to get a shape that you kind of might not accept or not be comfortable with. And what I wanted to talk more also is that we try to, by addressing all these hard subjects, we try to be conscious about the message, and we try to kind of being very careful about how we're shaping the communication, what we are saying. And there were months of polishing the message during the company. But there were also this question of hard subjects like, should we talk about cannibalism? This is something very nasty. But on the other hand, it happens. It happens, for example, during wartime, during long siege of the city in winter when soldiers start eating horses, then they start eating rats. And then maybe at sometimes someone eats some other people. So the question was not how to not to talk, if not to talk or sweep it under the carpet, but how to talk about them, how to make this similar to real life. And for example, as it goes for cannibalism, it kind of made it a kind of event that happened in a situation where the people are really starving for a long time and they really kind of are forced to do so. And this is a small event that you can actually close your eyes and say, okay, I didn't see that. Or you can protest and say, no, that won't happen in my city. And because Frostpunk is also a game that kind of touches all those subjects, it's still a dystopian game of kind of a fictional reality, but we felt compelled to kind of make an end quote and kind of sum it up and if the player kind of crossed the line, kind of gone too far with shaping the society and paid a too high price for the survival, we wanted to stress that out. We wanted to say, hey guy, you crossed the line. That's a bit too far. But this is also a moment when we think that many people may kind of ask themselves the question, why? Why do you say that? Why, did I really? And they start to kind of remember and find out if they did or they did not.
So again, we have the art section in a game, as it is so important here for us. So how we approach it? First of all, we looked at our game, we thought about our game, and we created a list of adjectives. What is it for? This was the situation we were thinking about this way. Okay, so let's say this hypothetical situation. What we would like our gamer to say when he sees our screen of our game. And we wanted to imagine, okay, what we want him to see in our game, and then what we wanted for this player to tell us about this game. And those were the adjectives. So what I'm seeing cold, I'm seeing city, I'm seeing serious game, and so on and so on. So we've listed the things that we wanted at the end to have on the screen, on each screen of our game. We wanted to see this. Maybe not on each, but as a whole, we wanted this player to see those, keywords. We call them adjectives. We also had some kind of course, product guidelines and stuff like this. So we had this Bible of how we would like the player to receive the visuals of the game. So the second thing is, okay, we wanted to understand what does the code mean. For the whole time we were researching it and stuff like this, but during the production, it wasn't made on purpose, but it just told us a lot about the situation. So we understood what code is about. I personally like hiking, and I like hiking in winter. And during the production, we've also been to the rather high mountain in Poland. And there were really nasty temperatures there, and the cold was so terrifying. And it was this situation you couldn't do much with it, and it was so overwhelming around you. We had frostbites and stuff like this. And when we then came to the studio, we said, "Oh wow, we really again are doing a really serious game." And this cold. You can imagine what cold is, so it's also a plus for a game to be easily imaginable. So then we thought, okay, from the visual standpoint, how we would like this game to be, what is also important for us. We wanted to have this distinctive look for our game, and wanted to have this look for the whole time, and wanted this player to remember Frostpunk is this game, and wanted to have the situation when he sees the screen, this player says, wow, this is Frostpunk. So as you saw, Michael already showed you the paper prototype. Then we've made concepts. Then it was our first playable prototype. As you can see, it's very different from where the game ended, but still the whole as a key art element was there, and in the center we had this generator, and that's how it finished. We have the whole, we have the center of the generator, we have this radial system and stuff like this. So we have this key art and key look for the game. We have these adjectives. We knew what we would like to feel at the end, what the player would like to feel at the end when he sees the game. And then we have this problem. Okay, we aren't that huge, and we won't be able to do everything with this game. We won't be able to have this option to, for example, zoom the camera totally close and see all the people walking around in Frostpunk. So we had to decide. We had to create a conscious decisions of how we'd like to split the game and how we'd like to approach the game. And on each of these approaches, on these three layers, we wanted to have the purpose. So first view was the city view of the game. And as you can see, it was for the building, management, and world changes. And how we realize it, we wanted the player to see cold, steampunk, wanted to see city, and wanted to have see our unique art system. So as you can see, the camera is set in the certain point. We never go back to come too close to the characters in the game. We have the city. It's a city builder game. You can manage this. You can operate on this. You can see the city changing. You can see the architecture. So this layer of the art was for the city. The second layer was for talking about the society and its problems. And this is the layer that we decide, okay, this is the layer where we will show people, the real people, but we will approach it with this way so it won't be so heavy in production. So we find out the style for it. We realize we won't be able to do it real time, and we focused on showing the emotions of the people, on showing the situations the game has for you, ready for you. And the third layer was a map layer, and it was we want to have this feeling that this game is not just this small hole, but there is a whole world around it, and there is this epic world you can also explore. And it was for this, and this world was for you to have a bigger breath and you can rest a bit, go out and rest a bit. And we found the look for it, the way we could emphasize the cold and also the scale. So I think we also delivered the message, and I think this game, it's, of course, you can tell if we did it well, but I think we at the end we have the society survival game from the design and the gameplay standpoint, and also from the art standpoint. So you already knew why we made those games and how we made those games, but I would like to tell you a bit more and just to give you some, let's say, maybe influence on you and tell you some another idea behind my personal idea on how can you approach your own whys and why to make games. So there are many whys. You can approach the games from totally different perspectives. You can make the games for your own joy. You can make games to talk about real life, for fish experiences. They are all whys. But I will like to only tell you about one why that I'm finding very, very close to me right now. And it's an idea of responsible development. So where do I start? You all know that we aren't IT, we are in entertainment. So if you are in entertainment, we have movies, we have books, and we have games. And all of these fight for one time. Because this user won't be able to stretch the time. So when he decides that he wants to have a love story, this player will decide if he will pick the book or if he will pick the video or movie, or he will ultimately pick the game. And it's not only my observation, because you may be seen it, but like Nintendo of America said recently, I compete for time, not against Xbox or PlayStation. So, the huge players understand we aren't competing about something. We are just competing for this time, and we need to have the value in what we give. So if you look at this way, Games, I think, would explore at the end all genres, all values, or all experiences to fill different users' times. And if we look at these games, movies, and books, look at, okay, let's deliver our genres, values, and experiences, we can go further. And okay, so say, maybe in the future games might be new books. So you could pick the genre, pick a love story, pick a drama, pick a tragedy, and read it, so play it. And if we emphasize the value in this statement, we can go even further. We can say that games might be new school readings. And not only school readings for the students, that's what's already happening, but it could also be in elementary schools. We have those adventures of Huckleberry Finn, Annalex, Lord of the Rings, a lot of school readings. What if in the future, Gone Home will be played on lessons and we will discuss about love and acceptance? What if The Last of Us will be at your elementary school and it will learn something? I'm not saying it's right now. What I wanted to say is, I would like to ask you one thing. I'm a father of 3 boys. And at this stage, I'm asking myself, what my kids will learn from my games? Will it be meaningful? Will there be a part of the value? Would I like my kids to play my own games? This is a question for you. Would you like your kids to play your games? Will there be a value? This is one of my personal whys, why I think about new games. I would like my kids to play games I create. But this is my approach, so I think you should all think of where is the value in what you are creating and why there is a value for you. Is it for fun? Great. Is it for your love for making games? That's awesome. But at the end, think of the huge audience that's behind the games. The whole world is playing. All people around the world is playing. So there is a huge responsibility in games that you all are creating. And make your own mark. Thank you very much.
Do you have any questions? Please ask.
Good. Hi, thanks for the talk. It was great. How much do you guys consider replayability when you're making your games, considering how you have placed your values and such?
Okay, good question. We do consider it, but we not make it a priority. We think if we go, for example, with Frostpunk, then the replayability lies basically in kind of different scenarios. You have a different path of choice, like Order, Fate, and we also supplied endless mode.
Cool, thanks.
Thanks.
Hello, thank you for the talk. When you guys were talking about the researching part to really get the mood of the game, I was wondering how many researches of like the current war do you have to do to really get the mood? What was the threshold?
Yeah, sure. It was basically all the designers. We kind of make a collection of books that we want to kind of read, of things in YouTube that we want to watch. Of interview that we want to kind of do, and we were like splitting between all the designers in the team, and kind of getting back with notes and comparing them and trying to get the whole perspective, trying to get out the essence of our findings together.
So the designers got together and they all kind of agreed, okay, this is the mood, and everybody kind of agreed direction, or is it?
I think with this war of mine, yes, it was exactly the case. I mean, we were achieved this mostly through discussing between ourselves, but there were also situations when, for example, I mean, all the designers have definitely different personalities, and we had some designers which were kind of very gentle, and they created some level that had a unique mood, like the old cap level. Yeah. So it was like a mix of people putting together their ideas. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Whoa, that's loud. I'm sure, like anybody else here who's played Frostpunk, my first playthrough went very badly. But the second playthrough went surprisingly well. At one point, my first person died, and I got a message for it, and it was actually that he had died of old age, and he was thanking me for making his life so good, and I was really surprised by that because before then it was a somewhat depressing game. But I got to that moment. I didn't expect that to ever be in there. So what made you want to put moments like that in there?
Good moments.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But, you know, we have hope in Frostpunk. Maybe there's it can get big, but we made those because mostly there are some positive things that happen, even in a very hard situation. And maybe replying from another perspective, I was kind of seeing some kind of documents on the war where there were people who experienced the war. There were actually, this was filmed during the war, that was making joke of situation, of very hard situation. And I think this kind of, you know, positive elements of kind of humor, maybe if it's a dark humor, these are things that keep us being alive and human, even in the most hard times.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm a Chinese player. I think you might actually notice. It's mostly from Chinese player community, they like the game. But there is one part they really don't like, it's the ending. So some Chinese players play very dictatively and cruel maybe, but in the end they make everyone survive. And maybe you are judging them oh, is that worth it? And actually some of Chinese think it's worth it. I mean, sometimes we have to organize people to go through that kind of difficulty, and then we can think about something else. But they don't like how you judge them in the end. So yeah. What do you think about this?
I mean, we were not aware. I mean, we were aware of that after just we released the game, that there is such kind of impression from Chinese people. Well, I think it's kind of our voice as designers of the game, and kind of a communication, kind of a message that you as well might not agree with. So we didn't know the Chinese people won't accept that. Sorry that you did, but for us, what actually it was important to state it. That for us it's crossing the line. Maybe that's a kind of cultural difference that we were not aware of.
Well, I mean, it's we are survivors of a lot of bad things, and we got organized so we overcome. So that's how we were made. And this kind of people is thinking differently. Well, anyway, it's interesting.
Yeah, yes, I agree.
Hi, so my studio is currently working on a game that, like this War of Might and Frostpunk, has to do with a lot of making difficult decisions. We've actually been playing your games as reference for our design philosophy recently. So one thing that really struck us about the games is how well they make you care about playable characters and non-playable characters that you've just met so quickly. Is there any sort of strategies you employed to make sure that would happen?
I'm sorry, can you please repeat the last part of your question?
Yeah, so how did you make players care about other characters so quickly?
Well, I think we don't have a recipe, like we don't have kind of technological recipe to get there. But I think the answer lies mostly in that we want to, in our games, create a sense of immersion and a sense of mood that will kind of make the player care about what's happening. And the other stuff is that most of the consequences, as we are showing in the games, they try to base off empathy. They try to show some kind of subtle influence that you have on other people's life. And we kind of stick to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.